Thought for the day. Forgive the past and let it go with great gratitude. It will allow you to embrace the present and the future with love and enthusiasm.
Welcome to 7 Minutes for Yourself. I'm Christina Aina, and I'm so glad you've joined me for what I believe will be 7 of the most enriching minutes of your day. Let's take this time to reconnect with ourselves and improve our well-being.
In today's episode of 7 Minutes for Yourself, we discuss guilt and how we navigate this emotion and move past it to get to a point of self-healing. Have a listen.
So today we're going to be talking about what it means to release toxic guilt and toxic shame, and how we can learn to forgive ourselves and move on, which sounds like a really tall order. Many of us feel guilt over different things. You can feel guilt over self-sabotaging your own life, which is a completely personal experience. In other words, like, I am giving up on myself. I have failed to meet my own expectations. I don't feel good enough. I should have done this. I should have done that. Or we can feel guilty around disappointing someone else or offending someone, saying something that was mean, doing something that was ill-spirited, really offending someone and hurting someone. We can feel guilty over being selfish. We can feel guilty over talking poorly about a friend. So this idea that I'm trying to help people understand is that guilt can be self-generated. I feel bad about myself as a person. I have let myself down. Or I can experience guilt that's tied to another person. In this case, we have an event where we are feeling guilt and remorse over what our actions have done to other people. And we're also, the guilt that we're feeling, we feel bad about ourselves because we participated in this event that caused other people harm. And so when we're thinking about guilt, we have to begin sifting through what it means to feel guilty and what it means to feel this remorse from our actions, whether our actions have affected other people, and getting clear about how in turn these actions and this guilt that we're feeling now become self-negative thoughts, deprecating thoughts, even self-loathing thoughts. Guilt can be highly toxic. So one of the first things that you can do is figure out where this guilt is coming from. So I suggest that we gain some clarity, that we literally sit down and we make a list. And we talk about, at least in the journaling, we discuss with ourselves, we have a nice conversation with the self about the guilt that we're experiencing in the moment. Because essentially, learning to forgive yourself is the path to self-healing. We can't advance emotionally, cognitively, spiritually, and even physically unless we learn to forgive ourselves and release the energy that's tied to this event that has taken place that we cannot change. And so we have to get clear about what's really happening. So when I know that I feel guilty just for being myself, which is the result of toxic shame, as it is the case in childhood trauma, growing up with emotional neglect, feeling abandoned, feeling criticized, growing up in a home that was oppressive, I can experience shame and I can experience guilt for even opening up my mouth. So this is the type of guilt that I would journal about and recognize that this is my stuff, that it came from my history and it has to do with me. It's something that I'm going to have to learn to navigate through breaking old patterns, getting to the root of my subconscious beliefs that are creating this feeling of guilt within me today. And that could be a really tough part of this journey because guilt is so common, especially if you come from a traumatic background, and learning to be more trauma aware of your own issues is very helpful. Because, for instance, when I realized that I was codependent and my therapist helped me put the pieces of the puzzle together, it became this eureka moment where I realized it could be no other way. Walking around with guilt and walking around with shame like it was an overcoat just felt so normal to me. Because for as long as I could remember, I received the message that I was not good enough. I wasn't good enough to talk. I wasn't good enough to share. I wasn't good enough to need. My efforts were demeaned and devalued. I never felt good enough to gain my mother and my father's a real connection to them. And children who grow up in these homes, they experience guilt. They experience shame because they feel like it's their fault they weren't able to gain this connection. So getting clear about where your guilt is coming from is very helpful. So on one side of your journaling notebook, you want to identify the guilt that's coming from within, that is tied to the past, that you are recycling within your own mind on a subconscious loop. Very important.
That concludes today's episode of 7 Minutes for Yourself. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Today and every day with your kiddo is a gift. Enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in.